Welcome to our Bright Ideas session on streamlining onboarding programs in Brightspace. We're excited to have you join us today. Before we get started, I just wanted to let you know of a few housekeeping items. So closed captions are available. Feel free to turn them on or off depending on your needs. The Zoom Q&A box is available for any questions you have throughout today's session. Please keep all questions specific to today's topic, and we'll do our best to answer any questions during the session. If you don't see your answer while we're together, be sure to check the Q&A report that we send in the follow-up email. Today's session is being recorded and will be posted on the Bright Ideas for Corporate Associations YouTube playlist. You can expect to see that video posted within a week. In the coming days, we'll send all registrants an email with a link to that playlist, a copy of the slide deck, which contains additional resources, and a copy of the Q&A from today's session. So our moderators are going to put a link to the Bright Ideas for Corporate and Associations YouTube playlist into the chat for you. So let's take a quick look at today's agenda. We'll start with introductions and then walk through some onboarding challenges and goals. And then from there, we're going to get into tools and a live demo in Brightspace. And to wrap up, we'll share some resources and hopefully have time to open things up for discussion and Q&A. As we go, feel free to drop questions into the Q&A. The moderators are monitoring that throughout, so you don't have to wait until the end. So, hello, my name is Amber West, and I'm a customer success specialist at D2L. Essentially, my role is to help professionals like you make the most of your Brightspace tools. Joining me today are my colleagues Heather, Lou, and Nicole, who are going to be sharing resources and answering any questions that you have in the Q&A chat. So today we're aiming to look at some of the common challenges teams run into with onboarding, and more importantly, how those can actually be solved using tools in Brightspace. Then I'll show you how source courses and intelligent agents can work together to make onboarding much more scalable. So you're not reinventing the wheel every time a new group comes in. Throughout, I encourage you to start thinking about your own process. The goal is for you to walk away with at least one clear opportunity where you could improve onboarding, either by automating something or standardizing it a bit more. But before we go any further, let's quickly align on a few terms. D2L is the company that we all work for, and Brightspace is our product, the learning management system. Depending on your organization, your Brightspace instance might have a different name, but throughout today, we're all referring to Brightspace. You'll also hear us mention Brightspace Community. That's D2L's free online site where you can access resources, share best practices, and connect with other Brightspace users. We'll drop the link in the chat if you're not already a member. We encourage you to give that a click and sign up. So when we think about training at scale, there are a few consistent challenges that organizations run into early on. First, there's the reality of that first impressions drive engagement and retention. So if the learning experience doesn't feel relevant, polished, or easy to navigate from the start, learners are less likely to stay engaged or come back for more. But beyond engagement, there are also practical requirements organizations need to meet. Training often needs to support compliance and certification goals. So that means tracking completion, ensuring consistency, and sometimes proving that specific standards have been met across an entire workforce. And that leads to another key challenge, which is as teams grow, there's a need for consistent, scalable delivery. It's not enough for training to work well once or in one location. It needs to be repeatable across teams, roles, and regions without losing quality or impact. So while creating engaging content is important, organizations are really balancing three things at once here. They're making a strong first impression, they're meeting compliance requirements, and delivering learning in a way that scales effectively across the business. So these challenges set the stage for why many organizations start rethinking how they design and deliver training, which brings us to our example that we're going to use throughout the presentation today. So let's look at how these challenges show up in our example. In this case, we're working with the Professional Skills Network, or PSN. Their audience includes new members and corporate partners who are onboarded on a quarterly basis. So right away, there's a need to support recurring cohorts at scale. But their onboarding experience wasn't as consistent as they wanted it to be. Each group had a slightly different experience depending on timing and setup. A lot of the process was manual, from configuring courses for each intake to managing communications, which created extra work for admins and increased the risk of inconsistency. They also had limited visibility into what was actually happening during the onboarding process. It was difficult to track member progress in a meaningful way, and follow-ups often had to be done manually, which was both time-consuming and hard to sustain. So going into this, their goals were pretty clear. They wanted to standardize the onboarding experience so every cohort received the same high-quality introduction. They were looking to automate communication and reminders to reduce manual effort, and they needed better tracking, not just for completion, but for overall engagement. So ultimately, the goal was to create a polished, repeatable program that could scale with their growth. And we'll use this example to explore how these challenges can be addressed in practice. So how do we solve this example for our example company, PSN? It really comes down to three things. First, standardizing onboarding with a source course. Think of this as your gold standard template. You build onboarding once with your welcome content, checklist, structure, and reuse it every time. At PSN, they use one source course for every cohort. So instead of rebuilding each time, they make updates once and apply them moving forward. That's what gives them consistency at scale. So there will be a few links in the chat here about source course. But next is automating communication with intelligent agents. These monitor learner activity and send messages automatically, so there's no more manual follow-up. This is one of my favorite tools to set up. So for PSN, this means a welcome email goes out as soon as someone is enrolled. Reminders are sent if a learner falls behind, and a completion message with next steps goes out at the end of the course. So communication stays consistent without adding extra work for their team. Finally, tracking that success. Tools like class progress give administrators a clear view of who's started, who's falling behind, and who's completed the course. So you can step in early instead of reacting later. And for managers, the manager dashboard gives visibility into the team's progress, so they don't have to rely on admins for updates. At PSN, this means managers can quickly see who's completed onboarding and who hasn't, can take action right away. That's where you start to see shared accountability. And then I'm going to mention as well that we're not going to demo the manager dashboard today or the class progress. We actually covered it in a webinar back in January. And if you want a refresher on that, we've dropped a link to that in the chat, as well as some other resources. So here is the fun part of today's session. We are going to take a look at how this actually works in Brightspace. So I'm going to break this down into three parts. So first, in part one, we're going to turn an existing course into a source course. So to do this, I'm going to come into my admin tools and find the courses. And from there, there is a source courses tab. So in our example, instead of starting from scratch, let's say PSN already has an onboarding course. We're going to use one as an example here. And let's say they want to standardize it. And that's usually where an organization starts. So we're going to click that Create button in the Source Courses tab and start from an existing. I'm going to choose the Workplace Wellness one here just because I'm familiar with the content here, but you can choose whatever course from your own that works. And select Create Source Course. And so this gives me a little pop-up here letting me know that the content and settings, everything that I've already created in this course are being copied from my selected course. And I'm going to get a notification when it is ready to work in. So at PSN, this is exactly what they did. They took what was already working and standardized it so every learner gets a consistent experience. Hopefully that's given me enough time here. What I'm then going to do, I can see my new copy of the source course here. I'm going to click the action menu, and I now have the ability to view, manage, deploy, reoffer, or archive that. And I'm going to go in and press manage so we can start working on it. So what I would like to do next is look at how we can do some of this streamlining of communication now that we have our source course created. So what I'm going to do next is from this course administration area, I'm going to find the intelligent agents. I can have it sorted by name or category. I'm just going to keep it in the default here and go into the intelligent agents. I can see that I had already created a few, but I would like a new one that's going to help out. So let's look at the workflow for creating a new agent. I want to name this something like survey reminder for completed content. I'm going to copy it from my sample that I've got on the side here and create a few conditions to work through and decide how I'm going to use this to communicate with my learners. What I do like to do in my process at the beginning is leave the status as disabled. I don't want to enable it right away because that gives me the ability to set it up and test before anything gets sent out. In terms of looking at what I want to do is there's a survey reminder that needs to go out, and some of the learners I noticed were finishing their onboarding course, but they weren't completing the course evaluation survey. So what I wanted to do then is schedule a notification that would run every day to look for instances of where that might not happen. So happens frequency, every 1 day. I'm just going to leave the scheduled time today. You can also use the schedule dates for a start and end if your survey itself has an end date, so that you wouldn't be sending out links to something that doesn't have access for your learners anymore. And this is the part that can get a little bit tricky, as well as defining your criteria. So when we're looking at the criteria part, what I am going to do here is I'm going to create what's kind of a more complex one, because it's going to look for 2 conditions, but I want to make sure that it doesn't get overly complex so that it becomes something that's impossible to trigger. So I want this to only go to people who are enrolled as learners in my course. And in terms of conditions, I think I would like one to be that they have not completed the survey attempt. I'm going to click no completed survey for the course evaluation. I also don't want them to get this if they're only partway through the course. So I'm going to add a second condition to that. I'm going to create a second one here that looks at the incompleted checklist for the course completion. One of the things that could be challenging here is if I tried to attach it to every single content item, for example, that would take a lot of time for me as someone setting it up. but this also looks at kind of what have my learners been doing, and what criteria would help signal that that survey, incomplete survey email should be sent. Finally, I'm going to look at our actions category. And I want to make sure that we're not sending same email over and over. So I want to make sure that it's clicked, that it's only the first time that someone has satisfied the criteria is selected. And I want to send an email. And this part is also kind of neat because you can look at using what are called replace strings. So these allow you to kind of customize who gets this information. So in this case, there are some that I can use, such as the initiating user, which is the one I would like to do. So that's who performs the action that satisfies the criteria that I've set ahead of time. And in my subject field, I'm going to just leave them a little message that would be sent out. So in this case, I would like to maybe say that here's a quick reminder that I want you to see this survey, and add a message for them. I can continue to use these replace strings in the message as well. So you'll notice here that I've got initiating user first name, so I can tailor it to the person that I'm sending to. So it'll automatically replace it with the first name only of the initiating user specified in the to field. And I can use that multiple times through it as well. I also use the org unit name so they get the name of the course where they have to go in and do that survey. As I'm coming through here, I'm also thinking about my scenario and being like, it might be useful to have the manager know who is getting these emails. So maybe I am going to let them know that I am CC'd on this. So if that goes out and we have to have a reminder for the survey, then maybe that can get added as well. So when I save and close that, I now have the opportunity to find that within my agent list. It's still turned off. And from there, I can see if it's been used before. I can do a practice run, or I could run it right now. And when I feel confident that I'm ready for it to go, I would turn it on in my course offering, but not in my source course, because nobody will be enrolled in the source course part of things. All right, so once I have my source course all set up and I am ready to send it out and have it sent to different course offerings, I am going to re-offer my course. And this part here is key. So because we've set up a source course and we've made some changes to it, I'm going to go back into my admin tools and back to that source courses tab. And from here, I can use that actions dropdown again and select the re-offer button so that we're able to deploy that at scale. So then you can create a new offering really quickly, save it, manage it, and continue on with your process. That quick. I think we spent maybe 12 minutes on this part of the demo, and that was with having our content kind of all ready to go. But as you get practiced, and if you're not trying to explain it as you go along, this is easily like a 5 to 10 minute task. So source courses are incredibly helpful. And it's really the power of using these tools that allows you to standardize once, automate your communications, and every improvement carries forward. And that's how our example company of PSN scales onboarding without adding any more manual work. We're going to come back to our presentation at this point. So what we've really seen today is how Brightspace helps to address key onboarding challenges by enabling scalable workflows through tools like sourced courses and intelligent agents, while also creating opportunities to improve and standardize the onboarding experience through automation. What I'd like to do at this point is have you share your thoughts. So while we go through the last few slides here, I'd really love if you could take a few moments and fill out our survey. These results help us to improve our offerings and make sure we're delivering what you want to see. There's a QR code on the screen that you can scan, or you can use the link in the chat. Thank you so much in advance for taking time to do that. We've also added a couple of links on the slide that provide information on our product idea exchange process. And if you have any feedback regarding Brightspace itself, be sure to check out those resources. And this may be your first webinar with us, but we do have more coming up. Here's a quick look at the topics that we have planned through May. You're going to see that there's just kind of one more in May scheduled at this time. You'll find the registration links in our session overview page in the chat, where you can also explore the past sessions. So I did mention the one that we had in January that covered Manager Dashboard that you may want to check out. As we plan beyond May, we're going to be taking time to review your survey feedback to help shape future topics. So again, please, if you have the time to do so, fill out that survey that was on our previous slide. Our training team also hosts 2 monthly webinars for Brightspace users, a live Q&A drop-in session, and a What's New session covering monthly release notes. And they're a great way to connect directly with the D2L training team. And you can find more info in the links in the chat. We also invite you to join the D2L Champions program, where you can earn points for sharing feedback, engaging with webinars like this one, and more. These points can be redeemed for swag, gift cards, charity donations, or additional D2L services, and you'll find that link in our chat as well. Again, thank you so much. We appreciate your time and hope to see you again next month.